I have a note here that says Martin Chokus gets cucked by a cuckoo.
I have a note here that says dyke.
Consider yourself lucky.
Cuckoo.
Cuckoo. Is it cuckoo or cuckoo?
I definitely feel like it's cuckoo after watching it. This is another film like Longlegs where...
It's a companion piece to Longlegs.
Well, it definitely is a companion piece to Longlegs.
Yeah,
we'll get into that.
So
but
Longlegs was the scariest film of the year until this came out, which is now the new scariest film of the year. If you talk to anybody that
it's
loved
a companion piece in the sense that it's like it's a neon film.
Neon art house.
Yeah, they've sort of become like the B-rate A24.
B24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this just is one of those new cerebral, trying to be this cerebral movie, really interesting cerebral experience. Cerebral.
Don't use that word too much.
Yeah. But it's the new, ambiguous art house horror film.
Let's make we'll call it pseudo-intellectual.
There you go.
Let's go with that. We're gonna make a lot of comparisons, I think, to Longlegs, just because we just saw that one, and then this is another neon one coming out.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this more than Longlegs, and I think you have the opposite feeling.
I do. They're both annoying films, but if I had to pick, I would still pick Longlegs, just because I was able to go along with the plot a little bit more.
Surely you can't be serious.
Yes, there are ambiguous things in Longlegs that they don't answer that is annoyingly vague.
Yes.
And that sucks. And you got the stupid exposition dump at the end of that movie.
Yeah.
I'm not excusing the movie whatsoever, but for me, that movie was it was easier to go along with. Whereas this movie, after a while, it's just like, all right, I'm done. I give up.
I mean, it started off very promising,
Yes.
and being vague, only giving the audience little tidbits here and there is how they kind of pull you in. And then it gets to the point where you're like, wait a minute, you're still thinking about the weird thing that just happened, and then now a new weird thing is happening, and you don't really have enough time to fully process, like, wait, I'm trying to figure that part out. Now we're into this part, and then you start to lose interest.
Yeah, well,
that was kind of like the entire third act of this film.
It's not even just the weird things happening. It's also just like simple story mechanics that you're trying to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had said, wait, so the little girl is 8 years old, and like the picture that they had was 8 years prior. So wait, when did the mom die? There's like all these annoying questions.
Yeah, little things that
Yeah.
It makes you just think, like, was this film written with these details in mind, or was it just written as like, here's what the writer knew, here's exactly what the audience knows, as opposed to like where you write this much
You
and
flesh
then
everything out.
flesh everything out, and then you show your audience this much.
Yeah.
Because if you did have to get into the details of what's outside of what the audience sees, you can actually explain
Right.
it.
Well, plus having that foundation, if you decide to go vague, you do it in an approach where you have that foundation there, and so it comes.
Right.
Even though it's vague, it still comes through in the storytelling.
Yeah, this came off as vague, which is okay. You could tell stories in a vague way.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to like steer your audience in a direction where when the film's over, they're thinking about it. They're like, oh yeah, like I didn't realize this, and I put this together after the fact, and that's interesting. That's a cool concept. I wonder how much more the writers knew about it. This we didn't feel any of that when it ended. We're just like, okay, like we kind of pieced it together. If you actually go on Wikipedia, there's like a really great synopsis of the plot that's like a kind of A to B makes total sense, and it's like, yeah, I guess we understood that while we were watching it, but it just didn't feel like we did. It was just a weird feeling when we were done. Like, what the fuck? Like,
I had a similar experience watching this movie to watching Tenet.
Well, I've seen too much. Well, we'll try and keep up.
okay.
Right, totally different movies, obviously, but that movie, what happens in it, it's very straightforward actually, and it's not that complicated what happens in the film, but it's executed in such a way where it's annoyingly complicated.
Being vague for the sake of being vague.
That one's not really vague. It's just there's all this shit being thrown at you in the weirdest Christopher Nolan way possible.
Yeah.
And so you're just at some point in the film, you're just like, okay, fuck this movie, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt with this, for different reasons, different genre,
Right.
all of that.
Yeah,
but
because
I stopped caring.
the movie starts off pretty solid. We're following 17-year-old girl, Gretchen,
What's up?
played by Hunter Schafer, and she's really good in the role. I thought she did a great job with it.
Performances are pretty good.
Performances are solid. So it starts off, she's going to stay with her dad and her stepmom and her half-sister. They're going to like live at this like secluded resort in Germany somewhere, like in the mountains.
The German mountains.
Like the Bavarian mountains or something like that. She's dealing with all this trauma where her mom died, and they make you think it's like it's something that happened recently, and now she's going to stay with her dad, so like her parents are separate. Well, you don't know. They don't get into that. And they get to this resort, and they're met by, what's his name? Air Koenig? Dan Stevens. Dan Stevens. When he shows up, you immediately know, like, okay, there's something off with this dude,
right?
But he plays it so well. Like,
Dan Stevens is the best part of the movie.
Oh, he's fantastic. He's a highlight of the film, but something else that is just like this underlying thing throughout the film is that there's this subtle humor that just works really well. Like, his character is involved with a lot of that.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be like this creepy, like, doctor guy who's like running this resort.
He's forcefully passive.
Yes, he's forcefully passive. And the main character is the only one who kind of picks up on it.
Yeah.
Like, she's just like, this guy's weird.
Yeah,
like,
at one point he says a line in the film and she's like, what? That's a fucking weird way of putting it. And it's very funny.
That's a weird way to put it.
That's the type of humor that really works well in this setting. So when you start to get that in the beginning, you're like, okay, I kind of like where this is going. And, it gets into that mystery aspect. Like, okay, now obviously there's something weird going on at this resort. You don't know what it is, and that mystery is going to unfold over the course of the film. And as soon as she gets there, like, she goes into the bathroom and like someone comes in and they're like in the stall next to her. It's creepy.
Yeah.
That was effective, right? But then as it goes on, as more weird things start to happen, it gets to the point where you're like, okay, can you like throw us a bone here?
I don't need it all spelled out for me.
No.
You can keep your film shrouded in mystery, fine. But holy shit, it's just little things like she calls up her mom constantly because she wants to hear her mom's voice on the answering machine.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's okay, cool story device.
Yeah, we've seen it done in movies before,
sure,
but
whatever,
it's effective.
So, okay, so she's calling an answering machine that's got a tape recorder.
Cassette tape.
Calling from a cell phone, from a smartphone.
Yeah.
Now you're fixated on what fucking time period this movie takes place in.
Oh, right, yeah, they try to be ambiguous with the time frame.
Yeah, because they wanted like the retro stuff, but then it's like, well, they just set it back in the 80s or 90s then. But no, she's got a smartphone.
Like, have her go to a payphone to call her mom or something.
That's one layer that makes it more annoying, because now you're thinking about, like, when the fuck does this take place?
Like, it's a subtle thing that's just like, wait, when is this happening? We got smartphones, but people are still using cassette answering machines?
Yeah.
Like, how old is that tape?
I know we're fixating on this particular issue, but it's just little things.
No, but that's like the type of
just
world building that, like, you see this in movies where, like, they did this in It Follows, where they tried to be ambiguous about the time frame. Like, they make you think, like, oh, it's kind of like late 80s. Like, people still have these old big tube TVs.
Yeah.
But they're like, they got smartphones and shit. So it's like, what is it? Which is it? But whatever. She starts to, like, just experience weird shit in this place. And Dan Stevens is like, oh, you should come, like, work the reception desk at the resort. And this resort, you find out, is just, it's something that was conceived, like, with her parents, and now they're gonna go live there. And, like, her parents, like her dad specifically, is gonna help them expand this resort, grow it out.
Well, it's obvious that once Dan Stevens sees her, he realizes he didn't know she was coming.
She was not supposed to be there.
So he's like, oh, and now he's trying to, like, keep her busy for some reason, and you don't know why. So he gives her the job opportunity at the hotel.
Right. And she's, like, super awkward. She's all angsty and stuff. And so she goes to work there. And they're, like, very clear, like, we don't want you working the night shift. And we want you to, like, get a ride back. We don't want you riding your bike alone down this mountain road.
She rides her bike a lot,
She rides her bike a lot. So, of course, the chick that she's working with at the desk is like, you're new, like, I should be able to hang out at night with my boyfriend or whatever, like, so I'm just gonna leave you here, it'll be fine. When Dan Stevens finds out, he's like, oh my God, I gotta come get you. And this kind of leads into one of the best scenes in the movie, one of the most effective scenes in terms of the horror aspect. She's like, fuck that, you're weird, I'm gonna ride my bike. I have a light on my bike, I'll be fine going down the mountain road.
Yeah.
So she goes, and that's when you start to...
By the way, spoilers.
Yes, it's in the title. Yes. It says fucking spoiler review.
There's gonna always know it. You chose it's a spoiler-free review.
Right, no. When have we ever done a spoiler-free review?
Anyways, sorry, continue.
Anyways, she's riding her bike and she's got her headphones on. She's listening to music. The character is like, she plays guitar. She's into music, which comes in later.
She's got her retro headphones.
Love it.
Yeah, anyways.
So then you start seeing, like, there's something in the woods, like, running through the woods. and it's effective, and it starts chasing her. And the way they do that sequence is
she's riding her bike on the street, and then as she passes a street light, she's looking down at her shadow,
and something's coming up behind her.
Yeah,
and you see like a hand coming out to reach her, and she's like, "What the fuck?" She looks back, and that's when you first see what this film's creature is. It's a woman.
She's a woman wearing like thick-rimmed sunglasses.
She's got big sunglasses on, blonde hair. It looks like she's wearing like a bonnet, or like she's wearing a raincoat or something, and she's running super fast.
She looks like a undercover journalist in the 70s or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's like you could like slot in Kathleen Turner circa 1995.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was effective. It was a creepy scene, and you're just like, whoa, what is this? And she rides her bike off, and she gets to this hospital, and you realize like this woman is still chasing her. Mm-hmm. She gets inside, and the woman's like at the door, and you could tell like she's kind of like a little weird looking behind these glasses.
Yeah.
Then the woman disappears, and they're like, oh, the cops are like, oh, it was a prank, whatever. We were like, okay, this is interesting. Like, what is this? Is she some kind of like creature? What's going on here? And they're also doing weird shit where they do these like time jump things.
That's the other aspect.
Which really becomes, and now this is something we talked about last night.
Yeah, there's like time manipulation almost. I guess whatever the fuck it was just another thing that annoys because they don't really go into that. But it seems like the thing, whatever she is, she does this thing with her throat.
Yeah.
Makes these weird noises that almost sound like bird noises. You know, cuckoo.
Cuckoo.
And then that makes like the people listening, it has that like Batman Begins fear toxin effect.
Yeah, where you get like the kind of shaky
the
camera
shaky
around them.
Yeah. And then
it's effective.
Yeah, that's cool. It's always a cool effect. That's going on, and then when that happens, after 3 seconds, it backs up and shows the same thing.
Like the person being affected by it,
yes.
like it's like they're on a time loop. They go back in time like 5 seconds, and they're like, wait, and then they do the same thing they just did.
Yeah.
But then as they're doing that, you see this creature woman. She's still advancing like time is the same. So whatever she's doing, it's like affecting them mentally in some way, or is it actually sending them back 5?
Yeah,
it's not clear.
So you're like, okay, all right, is it actually fucking with time, or is this just like a device for us as the audience to be like, whoa, that's kind of weird? Or is the character aware that that's going on?
Right, because we're thinking like, okay, so the character must then be imagining themselves going up and doing the thing they think they're doing, but then they blink and then they're back and they're like, wait a minute, I thought I was just doing that. And then they go do the same thing, but they're actually not moving.
No, yeah.
But like, they're so unclear about it. And it is like an interesting device that this creature can do, but like, it's still so vague about how it happens.
Or why it happens and
why
what
it happens, or like what, like, okay, just go with it.
Okay.
This girl now, she just wants to escape. She just wants to get the hell out of there, and her parents are like, you need to chill out, you need to stop.
They're basically accusing her of just like lashing out because she's angry.
Yeah, exactly. She's lashing out, whatever. So this is when she meets, she's working the desk, and she meets Ed. Ed is a girl who is just passing through. So then they develop this little random relationship.
They're lesbians.
Exactly.
Shocker.
She decides like, okay, we're gonna get the hell out of here. So she goes with that woman. They get in a car. They're driving out of there, and you think, okay, well, something's gonna stop them. And of course, here's the creature woman again, and she with the thing, and causes them to crash.
Yeah.
And now she's like, Hunter Schafer's like really fucked up.
Which was a visual I liked in the movie. Having her bandaged and like her arm busted. Like that was a cool visual character. Like, you know, like
seeing how messed up she gets.
Yeah.
So then she keeps having these like interactions with Dan Stevens, and he's just like trying to get her to just stop.
Well, she wakes up in the hospital, and the first person she sees is him.
And he's just
sitting there, like looking at her. And then he like starts getting close to her, but it's like he's
in a weird way.
It's like he's just hovering through space. And then you're like, what the fuck? But then it cuts to a close-up of his feet, like doing this.
Just doing this little like dragons. Yeah. That's the type of humor that worked really well.
Yeah.
He tells her like, yeah, you should just pretty much just stay home, or otherwise you're gonna just keep getting hurt.
I wouldn't want to get hurt even more.
He's actually pretty reasonable with her.
He's reasonable up to the point where he's like, okay, I gave you a million chances.
But then he's like,
now
fuck
you're
you.
fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like, he gets up, and then like the dad shows up, and he's just like, apology accepted, and just like walks out. And it's like it's like that passive aggressiveness that just works perfect. And this is when the movie shifts into a new dynamic when the cop shows up.
Right. Then it becomes a buddy stakeout movie.
Becomes like a buddy stakeout movie for like 15 minutes.
Richard Dreyfuss shows up.
Are you fucking with me?
No, I'm not fucking. And he's just like, I know about the woman, and
yeah, he tells his fucking story about some woman
Who chokes to death on
Chokes
her
on
vomit.
her own vomit. Yeah, and then you find out that
It's actually him.
It was actually him
and his wife
wife
or whatever, and he's a victim and all this shit. And he was I don't know. So they kind of team up, and he's like, yeah, we're going to go like stake out one of the cabins. There's like another sequence where you get a little more insight into the time loop then, but it's kind of just the same shit again. But now the cop dude is kind of just watching it from the outside. You still don't understand if they're actually just reliving the same moment over and over, or if it's just in their head.
you just don't understand what it's doing.
You just don't understand all it's doing is some kind of like distraction.
I guess, yeah.
For the guy, so it could get to the girl, and then it makes the girl go unconscious. So now this is the first time we see kind of what the creature is doing. She just has like this goop on her hand, and like she goes up to the girl in the bed like she's about to like do so. She's gonna impregnate her maybe.
Yeah.
They try to stop it. They try to take the creature out. Doesn't work. And then Dan Stevens has finally had enough. He goes to Gretchen and he's like, okay, I'm gonna just take you to the train station, send you out of here. But instead he takes her to his house and he decides to keep her there, and then he's just gonna make her part of whatever the fuck is going on. He's got this little flute where he can call the creature.
I guess, yeah.
And then he's got her like in this room. It's now a different creature that comes. The young girl from the beginning of the movie, you don't know what the fuck her deal is. She shows up and now it's going to impregnate her. And then like this is where shit starts to kind of unfold about what's going on, where this creature is very loosely kind of like a cuckoo bird, where it leaves its offspring to be raised by another family. So this creature impregnates women, and then they go off, have their children, and then eventually they come back, and then the mother, this creature, claims the children because they're actually whatever this creature is. And it's just told in a very awkward way.
Yes.
And that's the whole third act of the film, is whatever experiment of preservation they're trying to run to keep this creature alive and in nature.
Yeah, Dan Stevens'
falls
whole
apart.
thing is, he's like an animal.
He's a preservationist.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's a good preservationist.
Yeah,
The whole third act of this movie is so messy.
I just wanted it to be over after a while. I was just like, all right, this is...
Yeah. It gets to the point where you're like,
It's an interesting concept.
No, that's the thing. Like, I like these original ideas. The concept
too.
is unique. Like you said in the Longlegs review, we should be supporting movies that are original ideas. But you know what? You still got to execute.
It just ends up not being enjoyable.
No, dude, it's so hard to like parse the third act because so much random shit's happening, and that's all supposed to add up to this conclusion that is like, yeah, it still leaves you with questions. You kind of understand what was going on. Like her little half-sister was actually an implant by this creature 8 years ago, and now they're back and they're going to reunite her with her mother and this and that. And it's like, okay. I mean, by that point, we were checked out.
Kind of.
It was just...
I wasn't sleeping.
No,
but I was
no.
still just like, all right, I'm just kind of done with this movie.
The movie just got so ahead of itself.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to be vague and you're trying to give the audience a little tidbit here, so they have to like think about it. And that's fine. But then while they're thinking about it, you immediately give them something else that they have to ponder on. And then immediately something else like they have to figure out. And then there has something, and then it compounds to the point where you're like, okay, I don't care anymore. Because now I'm so fixated on that thing that happened 5 minutes ago that I'm still trying to like piece this
trying
up.
to work all this
trying
stuff
to work
out,
it all out.
and you're not letting me, so I don't care.
Right, you need to give a little breathing room for your audience to just work it out.
I like watching a new horror movie that introduces like a new horror icon, new horror character, new monster, whatever. This had potential for that.
Sure.
You think that the woman is like, that's just like not her true form or something, like she's...
Well, no, it's not, because they take the wig off,
That's
and she's just bald.
That's still what she looks like. You know what I mean? It's not like Mimic where it's like a fucking giant cockroach.
She's like a slight variation on a human species.
I get, sure.
Slight.
That's what it's supposed to be.
In terms of like appearance anyway.
Right.
But
She's got,
not
like...
in terms of like it's lives in the fucking woods. Like, but it wears clothes.
Yeah, exactly. Why is it
Like,
wearing
why
clothes?
is it dressed like a woman who's like just had her laundry done?
Yeah.
She looked fairly well put together. So where is she living? Because she just goes off into the woods.
Yeah, it looks like she takes showers.
Right? So obviously, like, they're out in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
Are they living out there in a building?
In a nest?
In a nest? I'm not saying that it's super important to know that information or where it is, but when she comes walking out of the woods looking like she could fit into society, I'm a little curious about where is she coming from? Because every time they show her, she's just kind of running out of the woods in the middle of the night, and she's looking fairly well put together. I don't know. These are the little things we think about. Little stupid things that we think about. Details,
Of course, when you talk about all this stuff, it makes it sound like we want things spoon-fed to us. That's not the case. It's not it at all. After watching it, you get the impression that whoever wrote it, they didn't have this shit worked out themselves. So
no, they had an idea, they had a concept, and they wrote just enough to tell a story that if they had gone into further detail, they would have realized that they had to work out more detail. And
and this is just kind of a common trend now with movies in general, I think. Back in the day, they would try to fill in as many holes as possible in the script, so the script was airtight.
Right, and that doesn't mean that all ended up on the screen.
Of course not, no. But even what does end up on the screen, though, they wanted to make sure that things were consistent, they had continuity, all of that. They wanted to make sure that the logic of their universe was airtight. Nowadays, because, and this is where I was going with this, but like Lost came out, and Lost was just like, ooh, the whole mystery box thing. That's what the terminology is.
Right. You're right. That started like a trend of like, just write the mystery. It doesn't matter if you know the details of the mystery. Just write it.
They are banking on the fact that you're going to be so intrigued.
The world of Cuckoo.
Yes. And it's like, oh man, like look at this atmosphere that we've created. Isn't that effective? Look at these visuals that we've crafted for you. Isn't that enough? And like, this stuff's good. Like there's no denying that there's craftsmanship involved in making this movie.
Yeah.
Sure. Cinematography was great. A lot of people are saying the music was good. I don't really care for it, but okay, whatever.
I thought the sound design was okay.
No, the sound design was great.
Sound design was decent.
The actual sound was cool.
Music itself was like, whatever.
That's what
I
I'm
agree
saying.
with you on that, but I thought the sound design was very effective.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a cool Atmos track. They do a lot of cool audio things. They want you to just sort of get swept up in the mystery of the whole thing. And some people that they can do that and kind of go along with that, fine. But for me, I need to feel like there's like a logic,
right? That even if it's not conveyed
everything
on screen, like that the writers are following a set of rules that they created, right? These are the rules of the world. But then when you start like going in there and you're like, wait, this doesn't really add up from what we saw with this part over here and this and that, and then you start to pick apart like, well, okay, maybe they didn't flesh it out enough.
Yeah,
that's it. You can be vague. You just got to flesh your shit out.
What you have to do when you're writing something is you have to put yourself in the audience shoes, and you have to be like, all right, well, if I was watching this, would I be confused right now? Does this make sense? Or if I'm confused right now, am I going to pay that off later and explain that?
Is the goal to just end the movie and have people confused? Well, if that's your goal, then congratulations. But this movie did do certain things well, and it fleshed out certain things well. Like I really liked Hunter Schafer's character and her backstory and like her calling her mom, and I liked how that paid off with her sister did like I guess it was like a speech to text thing, like also left a message with the mom, and that helped tie her back to help win her sister over.
Her sister's mute, so
she leaves a message for the mom, and she hears it because when she gets the answering machine later in the movie, it helps tie her back to how she refers to her half-sister as like, she's not my sister at all in the beginning, and then by the end, all she wants to do is protect her sister.
Yes.
There's a good character arc there, and it works. But that shit should have translated over into the rest of the writing, but it didn't.
Yeah.
And that's where we fall short.
Well, and then they do this weird thing in it where like it's sort of not really a cult, but there's like a group, Dan Stevens' group of people who like work at the hospital, and like they're kind of conducting this like
the other
preservation experiment with these creatures or
but
whatever.
Then he turns on them for some weird reason.
That's another thing that didn't make sense. But while all of this is going on, they're also kind of poisoning the mom, doping her up for some reason.
The Asian mom.
The Asian mom, yeah. They're like doping her up or something, but
she was feeling sick for some reason. Well, but then the parents leave, and then they never come back.
That's where I was going. They're like doping her up. Why are you doing that? They're obviously like, oh, you're feeling sick. You take these pills, and it's just like,
and then they leave,
and then they just leave. And that's it.
And it's like, where'd they go?
Yeah, they don't tell you where they're going.
They just leave.
That's it.
And then Gretchen, rescues the daughter, and then the cop and Dan Stevens just like shoot each other. And once you realize, like the little girl is actually the offspring of the creature, and she could do like the crazy time thing. Yeah. And then you kind of see that it is like, it's just them being in their heads, and then they just kind of like walk away. And Ed, the lesbian chick, is just like outside waiting. Like,
she's just outside of the hospital.
Hey guys, let's go. I'll give you a ride out of here. And she takes the daughter, and then they just leave. And it's like, where the fuck are the parents? Did the parents even know they were part of this experiment? Because if they didn't, that's kind of fucked up that you just kidnapped their daughter.
Right, you just left them. Technically, they're a victim in this too.
We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know.
Like they were here years earlier, and there's like kind of a few scenes with the dad where he's kind of being a little like weird about things, but you just don't know if the parents were involved with this from the beginning, 8 years ago when the mom was impregnated. Like, they just went along with that. They're like, hey, here's a fun experiment we should do. Like, what the fuck? Like, they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So then now you just took their daughter away. Yeah. Like, they're going to be looking for you.
Again, this is just like another detail that was part of like all of these things that added up to it being annoying. And then another thing with the fluctuating sound that it makes, all the characters have to do is just like plug their ears, and then it doesn't affect them. Like, there's at one point in the film, she's wearing headphones to get away
like
from the
earbuds.
thing. Earbuds, whatever. Then the earbud, okay, fine, we'll accept that.
Yeah.
But then the earbud busts, it breaks, so she doesn't have that anymore. So she only has one arm because the other arm's in a sling. So she does this. I'm sorry, but I can still hear you like perfectly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can hear you too.
Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure I could hear some kind of reverberating, high-pitched sound that's being sent out for 100 yards that you can hear across the forest.
Again, all right, they can still hear it. So why is it not affecting them? Is it like a certain frequency?
The only time it made sense was when, like, you know, like the cop, he had like the big like over-ear headphones on. Like, fine, okay, I'll accept that.
But when you start doing this shit,
no, that's stupid.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Weak. So again, another little detail that just added on to the pile. And
anyway,
it made it fucking annoying.
I went back and forth on this one a little bit. I was enjoying it more than I was enjoying Longlegs. And I think, what did we give Longlegs?
I was just going to ask you that. I don't remember what we gave.
I think we gave Longlegs like a 5 or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
There were things that I did like a lot about it. Man, when you get to that third act, it's just like, fuck off. I went 6 out of 10.
You give it a whole point over me. I give it a 5 out of 10.
Okay, I struggled with a 5.5, but I was like, there were some really good things about it, and I'm feeling generous tonight. Yeah, so I went 6.
I don't remember what I gave Longlegs. I think I gave it a 5 out of 10. But it's, even though I gave this the same rating as Longlegs, I still feel like I'd rather watch Longlegs over this.
Right.
This movie is arty and annoying. But would I say that it falls into pretentious territory? I don't know about that. Longlegs does.
No. This didn't feel. This just felt like more like, here's some European horror.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't feel like I was watching something overtly pretentious.
Yeah.
Where Longlegs, I was like, oh, come on. Like, you're trying too hard.
Yeah. I still say go see it. It's worth seeing it for him alone.
If it's playing in a theater. I mean, I know this is like probably a little more limited release, but if you can see it, go see it.
I'm glad it exists. Yeah. I don't, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but I just thought, I'll never watch this movie again, most likely, you know.
On the other scale, there's probably a minimum rainbow rating that this is going to get because
well, she's lesbian, so that automatically brings it up to 2.5 at least.
They just put that in there because it's like, why not? Sure, this is important to the story.
Right. I gave it a 2.5.
I don't even know. I think I gave it like a 1.5. I was like, whatever.
Sorry, but lesbian stuff, automatic 2.5.
Automatic halfway up the scale. Yeah, other than that, there's not really anything in this movie that's...
No, not at all.
Yeah, I guess go see Cuckoo.
Go see Cuckoo.
Cuckoo.